God.
We're here, everybody, and it will be another fantastic event. We're happy to say the most prolific batsman in the world of cricket is here, Graham Gooch. Welcome, Goochie.
Thank you. Happy to be at the crease.
Good at the yes, you're at the crease, and you're facing some fairly easy bowling as well. You used to like, you probably have a line a bit like Boyks used to say. When I used to ask him, if he liked batting, he said, "I love batting against you."
What is it? When you bowling?
Yeah, you used to bowl perfectly to the middle of my bat.
Didn't we used to shout to Gat, "Why are you taking him off?"
Yeah, you should probably. Anyway, how are you? Are you surviving?
Yeah, very well, very lucky. Out here in the, I wouldn't say the wilds of Essex, but in this countryside, just south of Chelmsford, really. Yeah. Not much happening. My partner Julia's learned to cook really well, so loads of meals, which is unusual because she normally heats and doesn't cook. But that's been good. A lot of walking.
So how does that affect? Because you always were someone who, if you ate, you felt you had to go for a run.
Yeah, well, we're very lucky. We have a gym here at home in like a summer house, which has been upgraded. So we use that. We walk quite a lot around the fields. Bit of running comes easily to me. A bit of walking, as I say. So we're lucky. I must admit, it's a bit more tedious this second time round.
What's cold because it's cold and dark, partly.
Well, also difficult to see where the end is coming. Maybe for sport in terms of getting crowds back and people watching cricket and football and all that. Live sport. I still think personally that's a way off. Sadly, but hopefully we'll be able to get back to some normality sometime during 2021.
Now, Simon, you're an exercise man as well, but you do yoga and judo, don't you?
Yoga, Pilates, and karate.
Okay. So what does that kind of make you in the end? Somebody very good at chopping things in contorted positions.
Something like that. I suppose it just keeps you ticking over, doesn't it? Keeps the car going. It fit a few miles on the clock. Now, I think that was one of Gucci's expressions, actually, wasn't it? When I think there's not much petrol left in the tank. I think that was one of yours, Gucci, towards the end of your career, wasn't it?
No petrol in the tank, actually. That's what I said to Mickey Stewart when I scored my 300. I said, "I run out of petrol, Mickey." That's when he gave me a roasting for getting out.
What, on 333?
Well, yeah, he said he should have gone on and beat the record. And I said, "Sorry, Mickey, I run out of petrol."
Actually, do you wish you had gone on now, or had you run out of petrol?
Well, I think once I only against Kent once in 1988, I got 275 and gave it away. So when I got close to 300, I was determined, obviously, to get over that milestone. And then it was after tea on the second day. So my only thought was then to try and get as many as we could as quickly as we could to declare. It's only when he mentioned it back in the dressing room that I even gave it a thought to the 365. On reflection, maybe a little bit more selfish. I should have gone on or tried to go on, but I was just interested in declaring on 650 odd or whatever it was.
Of course, you were captain as well, yeah. So you had to add other things on your mind, but it proves that captaincy doesn't affect your batting necessarily, I suppose, because you've got 460 runs in the game.
Well, I see. I'm not a subscriber to this view of captaincy brings pressure on a player, because I think you have to treat it as an honour and a responsibility, and you get the chance to shape your team and play the cricket or your sport in your image, if you like, and how you want the game to go, and what sort of style you want to play, whether it's ultra attacking. And when you walk on the field, every thought should go towards winning the game. That's how I was brought up, under Keith Fletcher at Essex. We always tried to win. We never let the game drift if we could. So I think that's one of the great honours. So I don't subscribe to that. It gave me, how can I put it, an extra gear towards the end of my career. And I loved every minute of that.
It's great to have everyone with us again this evening. I see that Phil Vasey says, my car registration is 333 in honour of Mr. Gooch. Is that right, Phil? And Jacob Matthews says 333, the innings was one of my earliest memories of cricket. And then it also says, didn't Goochie get 100 in the second innings too? Yes, of course he did, 123. So
greedy bastard.
1, 2, 3 in the second innings, and so 4, 5, 6 in the match.
Yeah.
Bizarre statistical things.
It's the dice, working with dice or something.
Well, I think, what happened was that if you can remember back 30 and a half years ago, we were trying to bowl India out, okay, before the follow-on, so we could make them follow on, okay. And I thought I'd caught Kapil Dev. Well, I did catch Kapil Dev at second slip. No cameras, no DRS and all that sort of stuff. No replays in those days. Caught him fair catch, hands on the ground, went straight in off of Gus Fraser, I think. He stood there, asked the umpire, who was Nigel Plews at the standing end. Dickie Bird was at the square leg. Nigel walked over to Dickie Bird and said, did that carry, Dickie, or something, words to that effect? And Dickie just looked at him and said, Nigel, he said, I cannot help you. So he had to give it not out. So then Kapil, as you well remember, there was a building site like it is now at the Compton and Edrich ends, hit Eddie Hemmings for 4 consecutive sixes over towards the clock tower, various lengths, far and very far. And Eddie kept tossing it up, trying to buy his wicket, and kept going further and further. The very first ball we bowled at Hawani, after they saved the follow-on by 1 run, we got him out LBW. So when I went back to the dressing room, I was spitting feathers, I can tell you, because I wanted them to follow on. Obviously, it worked out all right in the end for us, and we won the game, and it worked out well for me. So I was a man with a mission when I went back in the second innings.
Why were you so keen to enforce the follow-on? Because actually it's sort of gone out of fashion, hasn't it, the follow-on these days? Why was it such a big thing then when it's not so much now?
I think it depends on the game and the pitch, I think there was quite a bit of time to go in the game. So we thought you have to think that's the best way of winning the game. I agree with you. When I was coaching with England, 7 or 8 years ago, and that was the last thing they were thinking of, following on. No one ever wanted to enforce the follow-on, not unless you bowled them out really cheaply and your bowlers, your pace bowlers had not got many overs in their legs. But they always wanted to go on, get a bigger score and put pressure on in the second innings. You're right, it's gone out of fashion. It's a bit like a bat pad, isn't it? Nobody has a bat pad, really, until a catch goes there, Simon, both Simons. A catch goes there, then they bring someone in. I was always brought up with Mike Brearley and Keith Fletcher. We always had a bat pad, especially with players who, tended to want to get on the front foot, because that's what you're bowling for. The ball nips back, inside edge onto the pad. And also it affects the batsman as well, because sometimes he might not want to get forward so much, and he might be sort of marooned on the crease a bit more, so there's more chance of an LBW.
Actually, a silly point has become a bit redundant as well. A lot of spinners don't put a silly point in, which again has the same impact. Not only does it have the chance of getting a bat pad, but also it's in the batsman's face, it's in his eye line. But yeah, that's on out of vogue as well. Partly, isn't it, because batsmen play with their bat in front of their pad,
correct,
less chance of the ball going in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, when in my era, when I played spin against Shane Warne and some of the best ones, my plan would be to try and play the ball with the inside of the bat and the outside of the pad. Does that make sense to you? So I'd present a wider barrier and try and hit the ball on the inside half of the bat. I'm afraid nowadays you could not play that way with the DRS. A lot of players have to play in front of their pad, but it can be done with success, because if you look at Alistair Cook, and all the runs he scored, he tries to narrow the gap between where the ball pitches and where he puts his bat. So when he plays spin, he puts his bat right out in front of his pad. The toe of the bat's on the ground. So he's trying to narrow the distance between where the ball pitches and the bat. That's his way of doing it. But, you know, there's all different ways. And what I remember playing against Shane Warne, he'd never had a massive attacking field when he started. He normally had a slip and a bat pad, always have a 45 to say, and a deep square to say, if you want to sweep, you're taking a chance of a top edge. And he would always rotate his bat pad, put him onto the offside, bring him back over. And only if he was really on top a lot of the time would he have two men in front. And I think that art of that skill is left the game. And while I've got another stone in my shoe while we're talking about this actually, even in the last test, which we won, which was a brilliant game, why do both sides keep giving singles on the offside? I just don't understand.
What, with a man back at deep cover? You mean?
Absolutely, because, you know, if you're a batsman on the wicket like that, which is turning, there's wicket taking balls going around, you're only setting that man back on the offside to, you know, for the bad ball, the short ball, you lay back and cut it. You bring him up and you create that pressure of no singles, and that's what the spinner wants. He wants to bowl a set of six.
You're absolutely right, actually, because of course, what coaches always say to batsmen about playing spin is rotate the strike. You've got to rotate the strike, don't get stuck, and that makes it so much easier if you've got the men back.
Absolutely.
They also have the mid on and mid off halfway back the time.
It just takes the pressure off, Simon.
Yeah.
Now, when you come in and you've got a ring of four fielders on the offside, so you know you've either got to take a risk or it's going to be a bad ball to get the ball through the field. It creates the pressure. The more pressure, more wickets. We all know that.
You know, there were times during the last test match, we actually mentioned it quite a lot on the commentary, where you had four men back for the spinners. You had long on, deep cover, deep back with square leg, and sometimes a guy at sort of cow corner, sort of deep mid wicket as well. So there were so many gaps. It did make it easier for the batsmen. Also on the final day as well, when they were, I know it was only 74 to win, but you think at least bring the field in, just try to sort of cramp the batsman. But there were so many singles on off. It was easy for Lawrence and Bairstow.
Absolutely. It just takes the pressure. I remember being there, when was it? 2.5 years ago, 2018, when Ben Folkes got his 100. And England were under pressure in that first innings, I remember. And Sri Lanka, they had long off, long on. You know, there was gaps all over the place. And you've got to create the pressure. You've got to make the batsman feel that, you know, where am I going to score a run? You know, because every dot ball on a wicket that's turning particularly creates that, you know, uncertainty in the batsman's mind. Where am I going to get off the mark? And that's why we all say as coaches and older players, you know, the best way and the most skillful players against spin, if you watch Joe Root, is yes, you've got to have scoring options. You've got to be able to move your feet. You've got to be able to sweep, which he did very well on a turning wicket. But you've got to have a solid defence. And you've got to have a defence where you are confident in that defence, where men round the bat are not going to worry you. You can move from the front foot to the back foot, watch the ball off the pitch. If you've not got a strong defence and a confident defence, you've only got one option to attack. And if you attack balls that are not there to attack, you make mistakes.
So just put yourself in the sort of frame of mind of the Sri Lanka captain then. Why do you think he had so many fielders back? I mean, what was the reason for it?
Because he was crap.
I don't think there's a reason. I think that's just the modern thought of the modern captains and the modern players. They often have sweepers on either side of the wicket, whatever the situation is, because they've been conditioned with T20 cricket and one-day cricket, and that's how they play the game. I mean, we would never have. I mean, it was mentioned on TMS. Tuffer's mentioned it, and he's quite right. That you know, if the captain put a man back at deep square on the offside straight away, he'd be saying, "What's the matter? Don't you back me? Don't you believe I can bowl a length? You know, why are you setting a field for a bad ball?"
Looking at Root's innings, and we talked about this a bit, Simon and I actually, sweeping, and we mentioned your sweeping against spin, and it's interesting that innings of Roots I found really interesting because he swept balls that you normally might think about driving, but because the pitch was slow and it was spinning, the drive against the left-arm spinner, say, was a bit dangerous. So he met the ball with the bat almost flat on the ground and used that almost like a drive, but it was a cross bat shot, and it was a sweep, really, but it hit the ball through mid-wicket with a cross bat style rather than a straight style.
Yeah,
which is of course what sort of what you did a bit against India at times, didn't you?
Yeah, I think his style of sweeping is quite unique, actually, because he picks the length. Okay, generally with sweeping, it's, how can I describe it? It's in your mind as a player. You're looking for the shot, but the ball has to meet the right criteria. Okay, genuinely, it would be the ball you play forward defensive to. Normally, is the one that you would be looking to sweep, right? And the reason you're sweeping it on a turning wicket is to rotate the strike, to try and show the bowler that, you're picking his length and he can't just drop the ball on the spot. You're trying to disrupt his rhythm, really. You're not always looking to hit it for four. Sometimes you're just looking to rotate the strike. I think Joe's...
Or manipulate the field as well, I
correct,
suppose.
Correct. Well, I'll come to that in a minute, but Joe's sweeping, he doesn't really get his foot, unless he's playing the dab sweep, he doesn't get his foot to the offside of the ball generally. It's generally to the leg side of the ball, and he backs himself to hit it. And as you say, when it's a ball you could get a straight bat to, a drive. Because normally part of sweeping is you hit their length balls through square leg with a sweep or a dab sweep, and that normally gets the spinner. No spinner likes to be swept, I can tell you that. So they bowl fuller. And that's when you bring the straight back shots into it, which are normally quite dangerous if you're taking on straight back shots, unless you're hitting with the spin, on a turning wicket, unless it's very full. So he's got a particular style, but he watches the ball and he picks the right ball. And the other thing I think is important about sweeping, you don't go for it every ball, okay? You mix it up. It's like a mixed game. So you keep the bowler guessing and you mix it up. I was very fortunate in my early days. I had Keith Fletcher. We played on wet wickets where you had to lap. You've heard the word lap. Lap was another name for a sweep, for a ball outside off stump, basically, where you put your foot outside the line and hit the ball to the leg side. I watched Alan Knott when I played with him, and I learned from him how to manipulate the ball. And I'll give a quick lesson to everyone listening, is if you want to hit the ball square, generally you take the ball in front of your pad, okay, round about off stump, okay? If you want to hit it in front of square like Joe does, you'd have to keep your leg to the leg side of the ball, okay, which exposes your stumps, but what would we say? Acceptable risk, okay? If you want to get it behind square, you get your leg to the off side of the ball, so the ball is behind your pad, so when you play it, it goes more 45 down that way. And in the days of one-day cricket, where they couldn't have a fielder everywhere, Notty was an absolute genius at manipulating the ball.
I talked about that, Simon, on the podcast, didn't I? Because I actually fielded at short leg to Alan Knott in a game at Canterbury. I was the sort of Mr. Expendable, the youngest.
I was just going to say, you must have been expendable.
I was. Well, I was the youngest player in the team, and it was, Embry and Edmonds bowling, outstanding spinners. And I was literally ducking every ball because Knott would play a range of different streaks. And we had a man in front of square, deepish. We had a deep square leg, and we had a short fine leg. And obviously the third leg side fielder had to be in front of square, and me at short leg. So there were four of us all trying to cover off that shot. And it was like being on a firing range. I mean, it was absolutely horrendous, but it was brilliant. And I've always been looking ever since for other batsmen who had that ability, and there haven't been many.
Well, it's an essential shot for a batsman, whether left or right hand, when the ball's turning away from you, okay? And you need to have it in your bag, because using your feet to the ball turning away from you is fraught with danger. Obviously, the stumping, bowler sees you coming, drags the ball down, it turns, that's high risk, okay? Also, hitting the ball, as I said, with a straight bat through the covers is difficult because unless it's over pitch, really over pitch, you're taking a bit of a risk. The bowler wants you to drive because he's probably got a slip in a gully or something. You're looking for the nick. So on balance, sweeping the ball is the best percentage shot. And it's a controlled shot. It's not out of control. Sometimes you're hitting it for one. Sometimes, you know, you're looking to go full on, maybe in front of square. You're trying to manipulate their field around, and you're backing yourself. And as I say, if the ball bit meets the right criteria, you take it on.
Do you think in your career, sorry, Simon, you come in, do you think in your career, just quickly, that you saw, you know, now players, because of white ball cricket, really, players are encouraged to play, you know, adventurous shots, and there's no sort of blame attached if you play a sort of outrageous shot, most of the time anyway. Have you seen a progression in your own career from the days when you started of this, you know, license being a greater license for players to be themselves, if you like, whereas compared to when you started, was it more regimented, and if you played a bad shot, you got a bollocking, basically?
Yeah, I think with the senior players, yeah, if you took a wrong option, which was not a good percentage option, then you might get a bit of a rocket. I mean, going back to the high risk and low risk, I don't mind players going for high risk as long as there's high value. Does that make sense? No point in playing a high risk shot, like a massive reverse lap sweep or whatever, if they've got a man back there. What is the point in playing a high risk shot if you only get one for it? You know, just knock it down to long off or long on or whatever. So it's got to be high value if it's high risk. And they have so many more shots now: the reverse sweep, the reverse lap, the switch hit.
Did you ever play a reverse sweep?
Yeah. I watched Jarvid Miandad, but of course in our day the reverse sweep was more of the nudge to like slip. Do you know what I mean? You would just nudge it,
a paddle,
and it would go down where slip or second slip was and run away for four, because they wouldn't be having anyone that fine. It wasn't a full-blooded, you know, hit for four.
Smash over deep cover. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's obviously progressed since then. All I would say about that, I have no problem about that shot. If you're good at it, do it. If you're not very good at it, don't do it because it looks sexy and looks good. You've got to be good at playing it. And you know, at the end of the day, I'll be really old-fashioned, okay? Give me someone who plants it straight back over the bowler's head into the stand any day. And I'll tell you why, because it scares the living daylights out of most bowlers.
Chris Gale, then, would be your number one.
No bowler likes to see the ball go straight back over his head, okay? And I was there in that World Cup. I can't think when it was, 2012 in India.
2011.
When Kevin O'Brien kept smashing us over square leg, and I think our bowlers, you know, great bowlers that they were reluctant to pitch the ball up a bit, right? Because no bowler in white ball cricket where the ball goes gun barrel straight now, none of them like pitching it up because they don't want to go straight back over their head. So they go for the drag down, the slower bouncer, because they think it's a better percentage.
And less dangerous.
Well, you've got to be able to, in one-day cricket, whether it's 50 overs, T20, you've got to have the Yorker in your bag, haven't you? You've got to be able to play a good Yorker, because any batsman, the greatest Kevin Peterson, Viv Richards, if you get it up there straight and full early on, there's a chance they could hit across it and miss it.
You talked about World Cups in India, and we were talking about sweeping, reverse sweeping, Graham. What was the thought that went through your mind when Gat did the reverse sweep in the 1987 World Cup final, was caught a slip of Alan Border, or caught well on the offside by Alan Border?
Well, look, we all make plenty of mistakes when we're playing, take the wrong choices. I think the only reflection I would have is that we were at that stage in a strong position. Okay, he was playing particularly well. We were in a good position to go on, and Alan Border, who I obviously played with the year before, he came to Essex and was very successful, and obviously knew him from playing against Australia. How would you describe his bowling? Sort of canny. You know, he was more than just a part-time bowler. You know, he's a bit better than a part-time bowler. You know, and on those wickets, you know, he was a handy, opponent. My only reflection is that why would you play the reverse sweep very first ball to a bowler who's just come on? Okay, it's a bit old-fashioned, isn't it? You know, have a look at the bowler first. Have a look at, see what he does, you know, what he's doing with it, you know, maybe knock a few singles before you make those decisions. You know, it's quite a high-risk shot when you haven't got a clue where the ball's going. I don't remember the field, but I assume probably the man was square on the wicket and not short third man, so he maybe thought there was good value there.
Yeah, we all saw, of course, what the World Cup did in England not last year, the year before now, 2019, the first England team to win a World Cup. Do you sort of look back on that, actually that moment possibly in a way, because you were sort of winning the game really, as sort of like one of the perhaps the biggest regrets in your career? Is that how you feel about it?
I don't really have any regrets apart from, look, in 79 when we got annihilated by the West Indies in the final, and I was really pleased in 2019 we won it, because I was the only player to play in the 3 finals and lost all 3. So I was really happy we got over the line, although it did become a bit touch and go and it all went for us on the day, but they played really well. In 87, I thought we were the best team in the competition. We'd beaten the West Indies twice. We'd beaten India. Everyone, as you know, in the semi-final thought it was going to be an India-Pakistan final. And Australia turned the tables on Pakistan, and we beat India comfortably. And both matches, 92 was exactly the same. We just run out of steam a little bit. We come to the final, and we just didn't quite click on the day in both those matches. We didn't play badly. I didn't catch the ball in 92 when it went up in the air. Pringle maybe had a couple of LBWs early on, all these ifs and buts. But, credit to Pakistan, credit to Australia on the day. They were just that little bit better than us.
Let's revisit one of your greatest days, shall we? So this is the 91 Headingley Test, when you made 154, often dubbed one of the greatest, if not the greatest Test match innings ever played. I actually did a rating of it and compared it to Stokes in 2019 at Headingley, and I gave Stokes sort of 1 extra point out of 50, I think, because of the having to manage the number 11 as well as all the other things.
Right.
But it was a great innings, this. So I'm just going to play a few clips of it. Feel free to chat about it. It starts with a bit of Richie, so enjoy the memories here. I'm just going to share the screen, and here you go. Just have a little look at it anyway.
In the context of a particular game, I've never seen a better Test match innings than this one. This will give us a good idea of how fast the outfield is.
Long run up, Patrick Patterson.
Well, he's the quickest bowler I've ever played against.
He didn't look that quick this day.
Previously. I think
that's something on it.
I think for us batsmen in those days, sometimes going to Headingley didn't fill you full of confidence, because the ball used to nip around quite a lot.
You played some great pull shots here, actually. I mean, I suppose Headingley wasn't the quickest pitch, but...
Well, I mean, it all starts at Headingley, which you would remember, Yoz, is that the nets, where the pavilion you can see there, the nets used to be in front of the pavilion. And one of my memories, not of this game, but generally at Headingley, is that you go for net practice. You've had all the Yorkshire League bowlers bowling at you in the nets before the game and in the practice days, and the ball used to seam around everywhere on these green wickets, so you never used to feel full of confidence, that's for sure. But I mean, the wickets suited our bowlers. It was a low-scoring match, and it suited our style of bowlers. Maybe didn't suit their style quite so much.
It's this is when you get your 100. A sort of nonchalant flag to think. What about this?
I didn't get that.
What about this guy, Malcolm Marshall?
Well, he's my number 1 bowler, because if there's been a better fast bowler ever, I've never seen him. He had pace, he had intelligence, he could swing the ball. He could bowl, throat high bouncers. He could bowl all day. He often did, against Essex in particular. And he got wickets all around the world, in the subcontinent, everywhere, as well as England, Australia, West Indies. He'd easily be my number one fast bowler.
Look at the stats there, which I missed actually. The stats you got, 153. I mean, although this innings looks like a lot of boundaries, and there were 18 fours, obviously, it's a long innings actually. 325 balls. I mean, what's that? 438. That's 7 hours. 7 hours. It was a hell of an innings.
Sorry,
a hell of an
I
innings.
didn't quite catch that.
Well,
is that your Siri?
Well, yes,
answering your questions.
Your words keep actifying my Siri. I'm gonna have to turn it off. Hang on, I'll turn my phone off.
Just tell Siri to bugger off.
Well, this new iPhone 11 keeps coming on its own. It's scary.
They're watching. It is scary. Just tell us a little bit about. There's a little bit of a close up here of your stance actually, which I can find. I'm not going to be able to find it now. Well, I mean, what about? Just tell us about your stance there.
Okay, so you want the full story about the stance. Okay, so in 1974, 73-4, I made my debut for Essex. I batted in the conventional way with the bat on the ground, head slightly angled and not upright. In 1978, on the tour to Australia, I didn't do that well. I got 70 on the last test, but we won 5-1, but I didn't really feature that highly. When I got back home, Brenda, my then wife Brenda's aunt, had one of these newfangled Philips video recorders, okay? And she recorded the highlights. Now, back in those days, you never used to see yourself too much on television because there was no extended highlights or ball by ball, we were in Australia. So she recorded the highlights. I saw myself playing. I was falling over towards the leg side so much, and I thought, I just can't go on like this, keep getting LBW. So the 79 season, I started to stand a bit like this, more upright. That's a bit more crouched than probably I was when I started doing this in 79. And I tried to get my eyes level and my head up, and immediately I felt more comfortable. And the only reason I brought my bat off the ground because I couldn't get comfortable with it, tapping on the ground. So I adopted that stance, and then it all started to go well for me. I hit the ball down the ground, which was the staple diet for my game. Hit the ball down the ground, hit it back where it comes from. And I always, for some reason, I can't tell exactly why, I played fast bowling and spin bowling a lot better than I played medium pace bowling. So
I mean, you didn't have a big stride, I suppose, did you? I mean, there's a couple of drives here where obviously you're facing fast bowlers.
What I used to try and do was move my back foot, just slide my back foot back onto about middle stump, and then push my weight forward into a half forward position to drive. That was generally it. And the key is that my first proper coach, Bill Morris at the Ilford Cricket School, told me was when you slide your foot back, you move your foot, but you don't move your body weight. So if you were watching me from the side, I'd be sliding my back foot back 6 or 9 inches, but I wouldn't be moving my body weight back. Does that make sense? And so I can still push back into the ball. But, stance, trigger movements are very personal to a lot of players. There is no right and wrong way. It's Steve Smith's a great example. You get in that position to address the ball once the ball comes down, as long as your head's upright and your head's generally over off stump. So it tells you exactly if the ball's on your eye line, it's on target. That's generally a basis for playing. But that's where the stance come from.
When you're playing in innings like that, Graham, are you sort of conscious that, I mean, Yon said it was, it was in one of the greatest innings of all time. Actually, I think it was ranked in the top 3 by Wisden in 2000. Is it like in the top 3 greatest Test innings, not just greatest England innings, but greatest innings in 2000. Are you conscious that you're doing something special? Are you just so focused on the match situation and just playing? Are you actually thinking, goodness me, I'm actually doing something quite, almost almost out of my comfort zone here.
No, not really. I'm just trying to just deal with each ball as it comes along. You know, I learned quite at that stage in my career. You know, I learned from the great Barry Richards. I'll tell this story often about him marking his line. Okay, he marked his line at the crease, right? He along with the other Richards, are the best two players that I've seen. Viv Richards and Barry Richards. Different styles completely, but Barry was a great sort of technician of a player. Anyway, he used to mark his line and then, you know, play. And I said to him once, why do you keep marking your line? Because you've got like a big, like, you know, rut in the ground, a bit like Jonathan Trott later used to mark. And he said, well, I'm not marking the line because because I need to know where to stand with my feet. I'm marking my line. That's my way of drawing a line under the previous ball. And that's what you have to do in all sports. And one of my favorite sportsmen now is Rafa Nadal. And that's not because I think he's better than Federer or any of those guys. You know, he plays every point like it's the only point. And that's the way to, I think, go as a sportsman. So you, as a batsman, you draw a line under the previous ball and the next one is the game. That one ball is the game. So if it's there to hit, I'm going to hit it. If I leave it or do whatever, I will deal with that ball. I will draw a line under it, and then I will move on to the next ball. Okay, so in the contents of that innings, it was just deal with every ball. And if they overpitched or bowled me short ball, you know, I'll go for my shots, okay? Because as a batsman, or run maker, as I like to call it when I was coaching, you are responsible for scoring runs. You're not just there to occupy the crease. Your first thought is score runs, because that gives you the right frame of mind. And then from there, if the ball's not there to hit or not in the right spot, then you cover up or leave the ball. That's the second option. But you're always going to have that positive thought. I think it's a big mistake if you go out there thinking, they're not going to get me out. And every batsman's done this. They're not going to get me out. I'm not going to make a mistake. I'm just going to stick in. Because what happens is you become a bit negative, your feet don't move so well, and you miss the opportunities to score. So you've always got to be thinking that I'm going to score runs. And also, it is another stone in my shoe for me. I like to see batsmen who are confident, little bit of arrogance. And I learned from watching people like Viv Richards, look the bowler in the eye, show him he's up for a contest, engage in a bit of sledging if you want to. And I sometimes, in a famous Middlesex match at Uxbridge, I instigated the sledging because I wasn't feeling great and I wasn't feeling up to my normal self. You know, something was wrong. So I started to sledge the bowler, trying to get myself in the right frame of mind, and it worked, you know. So what I'm saying is, I think when you're on your own against the other 11, right, you got your partner, you have got to, you know, show confidence. You have got to show good body language. You've got to show them that, you know, give me your best and let's see what happens, okay? Because I think you have to challenge yourself against the best. And it's a mistake, I think, for a batsman in particular and a sportsman to say, you know, Curtly Ambrose is not playing today. That's great. It's good for our side. I never wanted that. I always wanted to play against the best, because part of sport is challenging yourself against the best players. Because if you do that, again, it creates the right frame of mind and environment for you. You know, you don't want to be avoid the contest. Why would you want to do that?
You talk very passionately about the game, and I mean, you've done a lot of coaching as well. You coached Alistair Cook, goodness knows for how many years. You helped him. Are you England batting coach? How does coaching compare to playing? People say, oh, you know, playing is the ultimate, and coaching is, you know, something you perhaps have to do because you can't play anymore. How did you see the balance between the two of those?
I enjoyed the coaching a lot, but it's nothing like playing. It's nothing like something to aim for, because I think in coaching, there's a line you can't cross. You can impart your knowledge and information to somebody, and I'll come to that in a second. But at the end of the day, it's down to them. You know, they're the player. They're responsible for their performance. They're responsible for their development, and they're responsible for helping other people as well. Not you, the coach. You know, it's their career. They have to take it on board. So it's good it's a good thing to do, and it's very, very rewarding when things go right. The downside is that if it doesn't go right, it's not one person's misery you've got. You feel it for all of them. You feel responsible for all of them. And it's sometimes hard to come to terms with. You know, when I was a player and captain, one of the big criticisms of my captaincy and my character, which is quite right, is I expected everybody to put in the same level of effort as I did, you know, sacrifices, you know, training when you didn't have to, putting in the hours, all those sort of things. I got a bit irritable if they didn't, which was a mistake, really, because everyone's individual and they give it their best, and that's the way it is. I'll just go back to the coaching before you come in. Right, so my philosophy on coaching is this. If I coach Alistair Cook, I try and give Alistair the options, okay? I talk to him. It's a two-way conversation, not a one-way street. It's not just the coach telling the performer what to do, okay? You discuss options, what you think will make him a better player, whether it's tactically, technically, fitness, mentally, anything that might make him a better player. We used to play badminton at the end before we practice, right? Why do we play badminton? Badminton's the best sport for batsmen, because if you look at all the movements in badminton, you're watching the shuttlecock, you're moving from side to side, you're placing your feet, okay, on the balls of your feet, and you are moving backwards and forwards, okay? The same as a batsman does at a crease, right? Not to the degree in the distance, but those little tiny movements where you're adjusting your feet. So it's brilliant for batsmen, because you've got to be on your balls, your feet. You want to play late, but you want to adjust your feet. So you give the player options. It's not your job to play for him. It's his job to look at what you're saying, look at your ideas and say, yes, I can do that. That will enhance my game. But no, I can't do that. I don't fancy that. I don't think I can. That's going to help me. I'll put that to one side. I'll bin that. It's not that it's bad information, it just doesn't work for you. And the trick is, for a performer, is to work out what's good for you and what's not good for you. Because if you take every ounce of information, generally what happens is you become confused.
Well, the trouble is, I suppose, with that is that it's all right if you're experienced, but not if you're young, because you're not sure what you're good at.
True, but you have to learn, don't you? You know, as I say, the best piece of coaching advice I could give any player, you know what that is? What do you think that would be?
Prepare to, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail.
That's not bad, but a bit better than that. Okay, think for yourself.
I was going to say,
think for yourself.
Yeah, make your own decisions. Yeah,
think for yourself. When you go across that white line as a bowler, think for yourself. As a batsman, no coach can help you. You can't come back to the laptop at half time or lunch and look at that and get someone to say, well, what's going wrong? You've got to have it in your head. All sports, and particularly cricket, is a fabulous sport, because as a bowler, you've got to change your style, you know, from over to over, batsman to batsman. When the ball gets a bit older, you've got to change it. Ken, like Stuart Broad's learned, you know, to bowl the cutters, you know, on wickets, you know, bowl the cross seam, go round the wicket, all those things. As a batsman, how can I give an example? Michael Holding takes the new ball at Old Trafford, and I make my decision before I've even played a ball. If he bounces me, am I going to hook him or not? I've made that decision before the bouncer comes. I've worked that out. And then probably I'll be saying, if he bumps me, I'm getting out of the way. Okay, I'm swaying, I'm ducking, I'm watching the ball, but I'm not taking it on. If I'm 50 not out, maybe I'm readjusting that plan. If he bumps me now, I'm going for it. I don't understand players when they say, I'll wait to see the short ball come in and then I'll make a decision. You're kidding me, aren't you? And someone bowling at 90 miles an hour. You've got to be, one thing a player has to be, a run maker, is decisive. I don't see how that's decisive if you're making a decision in a split second. You've got to decide whether you're going for it. I got 100 at Colchester once against Courtney Walsh. It went on for about an hour, okay? He bumped me, hooked him, bumped me again, hooked him, put a man back. Then I ducked him, right? A couple of overs, kept ducking. Then he brought the man up. I thought, okay, here we go. Hooked him again 4, Went on for about an hour. Man kept coming in and out. Every time he bumped me with a man back, I got out of the way. Every time I brought him up, I thought, that's good value. I'll go for it. So,
mate, you make it sound so simple. I hate you. I hate you.
I don't understand. Okay, so I might as well get all my stones in the shoe out of the way. Okay, I like Kevin Peterson. I got on with him pretty well. He's a brilliant player, right? Box office player. I don't quite understand the. This is the way I play, right? Great players play the situation, not the occasion. Okay, and. Okay, this is how my mind thinks when I'm batting. If you put two men back for a hook, how much will you pay, Simon, for that wicket? How much would you pay?
What do you mean pay?
How many runs would you pay? How many runs would you pay for it?
12.
12. So if you hit 3 4s and the fourth one up in the air, you think that's good value.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I say to that is, if I'm hooking with two men back, I'm hooking on your terms, not mine. So I'm not having any of that. Okay. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
You're hooking on his terms because he's happy to pay for it. Simple.
Mm. And then so that applies to, say, that ridiculous shot he played in Perth in the Ashes of whenever it was, 2012, when he got caught a long on.
Yeah, we had a little contretemps after that,
which
is well documented.
Yeah.
Basically, I'll give you the short version. Okay, so it came off. I mean, you've got to remember, Kevin has been a brilliant player. And, well, you do remember then that he got caught at, I think, in the covers in the first test.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Then he got caught on the hook in the first test. And then somewhere else, he got, well, put it like this, he got caught in the ring quite a lot.
Mm.
First innings, he got caught mid-on in that Perth test. And then when he hit it down Lyons, or I can't remember who was kept fielding, but I think Lyon was probably bowling. We all came to the balcony at Perth, right? There was Andy Flower, me, Alistair Cook, and Kevin. And I sort of lost the plot a little bit then. I turned to Kevin and I just sort of said, what are you doing? You're a great player. We're fighting for our lives here. I can't reject my exact words, but I wasn't best impressed. I just couldn't let it go. And I unloaded on him. And then Alistair was sitting next to him, right? And I turned to him and I said, you should be telling him this, not me. You should be telling him. Anyway, I just had to, I mean, look, I got on with him well. He got 60 odd in the next match and he played well. But look, he was a brilliant player and I would never criticise exactly the way he played because of his career's, unparalleled, and his box office and people love watching him. But
it's an example of saying he didn't play the situation very well. He played the occasion, obviously.
Well, that's one of the skills. That's why we love the game, isn't it? Because you adapt, you play different types of innings, and the people who can play different types of innings are the ones you love watching. And that's why I thought it was a brilliant test match, this one. We all love.
You mean which test match? You mean the India-Australia one?
No, this one. Well, both of those. I didn't watch a lot of that, but the one we just played in, and some of our players, Joe Root's 100, great skill. Because if I said to you, what's the difference between scoring 100 and making 100? You tell me.
Scoring is. Making sounds like you've created it, you've fashioned it. Scoring is just a number.
Okay, so scoring for 100 for me means that this day all goes right for me. Okay, it all falls into place. Okay, penny in the slot, away we go. Okay, making 100 is when you have to think it out, like Joe did in the first innings at Gaul. You have to work for it. It's not going to come easy. You have to use all your skills of patience, ability, shot selection. It's a different type of innings, okay? And he did that, and Dan Lawrence did that to a degree as well. And it's much more satisfying. And that's what you have to do, in my opinion, as a great player. You've got to be adaptable. And there's a lot of talk about T20 and test matches. You can't compare the innings that Joe Root played with T20. T20 is great. They smash the ball out the ground, they put it 20, 30 rows back. But You tell me, as journalists and commentators or whatever, every T20 match is the same, isn't it?
It's much harder type of the game to write about, actually, because there's less to get your hands. You get there's less nuances, and there's less pressure and sort of mental taxing of players, and it all happens so quickly. Really, there's no depth to it, I suppose.
Okay, so I'm agreeing with you, and what do you write a report for a T20 match? Every game,
stats, basically.
Every game, the style of the game, the scores might vary between 140 and 220, okay?
Yeah.
But every style of the game, tell me if I'm wrong, is exactly the same. They go out there to try and score 10, 12 and over, okay? And they sacrifice wickets. I'm not complaining about it. It's just the style it is.
There's a lot of people applauding in the audience here, by the way, at this. Okay. There's a lot of people applauding in our virtual audience.
Okay. So if I was playing T20, I would be doing what the baseball players do, and what I saw Shane Watson do a few years ago. I'd stand in the half forward position, okay, and if he pitched it up, I'd try and obviously launch it back over your head, and if he pitched it short, I would baseball you over like Warner does over square leg. Okay, I'll keep it real simple, like Chris Gale. It's skillful, but I don't think you have to think it out quite so much. There might be the pressure of having to get your side home, in the end, and that pressure is always difficult. And I think in one-day cricket and T20, you need certain type of players. You need players who are mentally adept at setting the game up. And then you need those players who can bat 5, 6, 7 and 8, because they're the pressure positions. When you come in and you need 7, 8, 9 and over nowadays, it used to be 6 and over nowadays, but now it's like 8, 9 and over. I remember my first ever game for Essex, one-day game. This is my first ever first team match against Surrey at Chelmsford in 1973, about May. When I came in at number 8, we needed 48 off of 8 overs. And I'm thinking, Christ, how are we going to get these? We've got no chance. 6 and over, we've got no chance to do it. They do it in 5 overs now, no problem,
Actually, funnily enough, I think that the bowling in T20 is almost more interesting than the batting sometimes, because the pressure on bowlers is immense, and that there are ways with bowling of deceiving the batsman, not only in what you bowl, but how you set the field, and sort of sending out decoys with certain field settings and different types of balls that they've developed, and actually mystery spin, a bit spinning the ball both ways. It's given spinners a bit more opportunity, actually. So I, in a funny sort of way, I think the batting is almost a bit repetitive, as you're saying, and a bit predictable, but some of the bowling can be quite interesting. There was a brilliant sequence with Nocky bowling to Butler in one of the IPL games, where Butler hit him for a brilliant 6 over long on, then ramped him twice. He was bowling at over 90 miles an hour. And then rather than the bowler sort of trying another thing, he bowled another Yorker and bowled him. And it was just a brilliant sort of 4-ball package of exploring the skills. Anyway, listen, we should get the our audience to ask some questions. We've dominated for too long here. So can we get... I've made a little list of your questions here, and Umar is top of the list. Can we get Umar on screen to ask your question? Umar, you're there.
Yeah.
Hello, Umar.
Thanks for coming.
Good evening, Umar.
You too. First of all, it's great to speak to you and to be part of this group. I've only been here for 2 weeks in the setup, and it's brilliant. It's fantastic.
Right. Well, tell your friends then.
Yeah, I'm on that. I've got a few people lined up, hopefully. So my question is, so your test career started off quite poorly. I think you had a couple of ducks and some low scores. You were then dropped from the team after 2 tests. So how did you come back from that? And did you change anything in your setup, or did you just carry on as you were and believe that what you'd done for so many years was going to get you to get the success that you got eventually?
Well, no, I certainly didn't carry on in the same way. Firstly, it's quite convenient to have your first test score in your surname, actually. Okay. Anyway, so I was batting in the middle. I was batting in the middle order when I made my test debut. I have to tell you, it was quite daunting, because when I made my debut in 1975, I was the England had got a complete kicking in Australia the winter before. Mike Denesti's side, the famous Lillian Thompson series, where they were bowling rapid on hard green top wickets. And they come back a bit shell-shocked. It's a famous story about David Lloyd getting hit in the box and John Edrich getting broken rib, hitting the ribs anyway. So they were looking for someone new. I'd been in county cricket a year and a bit and scored a few runs at the start of that season. But the interesting thing, I have to say this, is that dressing room that I went to, okay, so when we turned up, it was just the captain and the chairman of selectors, no coaches, nothing like that. You went for irrelevant nets on a Wednesday afternoon before the Thursday match, okay, just to meet up. So the team, if I remember right, was Dennis Amiss, John Edrich, Mike Deness, Keith Fletcher, myself, Tony Gregg, Alan Knott, John Snow, Derek Underwood, Chris Old, and Jeff Arnold. Do you know, Umar, probably about 7 or 8 years earlier, I used to have this little game called How's That? A little roller you used to play test cricket with, and you used to do your own little scorebook, okay? All the names I used to put down in that scorebook were all the people that I was on the field with that day. And I did feel a little bit of a fish out of water, I have to say. I didn't really, Keith Fletcher was the only one I knew as my Essex captain. So it didn't go well, let's say. It was a rain effective match. Mike Deness won the toss and put Australia in. And if you know anything about know anything about uncovered wickets, if you won the toss, you're always batted. Don't care what the wicket looked like, you always batted, because if it rained, you're in trouble. And that's exactly what happened in that match. Anyway, so a couple of years later, Keith Fletcher, the Essex captain, asked me to swap places with a guy called Brian Hardy in the Essex team and open the batting. And I did in 78, and I started well. And that was the start of a change in my fortunes, to be fair. So opening the batting made me a better player, a more controlled player and a more thoughtful player. I would say I was a typical youngster, quite a lot of talent in the early days, no structure. Nil structure at all. Just went out there and played.
So rather than a technical change, it was more of a mindset change, really.
Yes. Yeah, I realised I had to be fitter. I realised I had to be mentally more attuned. Concentration need to be better. And that's why, when I lecture on cricket, sometimes now batting, there's 4 things. You've heard me say it before. Attitude's 1, technical abilities 2, knowledge is 3, and the most important one for a run maker is concentration. Because if you can't concentrate, you can't score runs. If you can't concentrate for a long period, you can't score big scores. Simple as that.
It's the obvious answer why I was never any good at batting, because my concentrations are absolutely shit. Brilliant question, Umar. I hope that satisfies you. Get your mates in and hurry up with it. Next week we've got Ian Botham in 2 weeks' time. Just to, if those of you haven't spotted that already, and we're going to do a wine tasting with Beefy. He's going to actually taste. He's going to talk about some of the wines he actually made. So, what are you
going to do at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose there is that slight concern, but anyway, it's early-ish in the evening, so he should be fairly compos mentis. Right, let's go to the man on WhatsApp who's known as you, and I don't actually know what your name is, but you have posted a question. Do you know who is that? Now, what's your name?
Ushka.
Ushka, thank you very much for joining and being part of this. And I'm sorry that we don't have your full name. How do you spell that?
Pushka.
Oh, Pushka. Yeah, right. Oh, sorry, I thought you said Ushka. You cut out. Anyway, great to have you on. What's your question?
So my question is basically regarding to the current series which you have seen in the last, you can say, for 10 years. Whether the opening stance or the opening partnership across the globe is not of that standard which we see here in the 2000s or the 90s or the 80s. Why is there a sudden decline in the openers all around the globe?
So I'll tell you what, I can help you here, because this is you've done a bit of research on this, haven't you, Pushka? I've pulled up there's a graphic here which you made, which looks at all the opening pairs in the last what, 30 years, is it? Yeah, from the 1990s. No, 1980s actually. And this is a list of opening pair partnerships in the different decades and their what's the word? Collaborative average, their overall average. So in the 2000s, the opening pairs in Test cricket averaged 40. In the 90s, they averaged 36. So it's the yellow column we're looking at here. And in the 1980s, they averaged 35. So in the 2020s, they're averaging 31.91. And your question basically is, why might that be? Is that right?
Yeah, true.
Have you got a theory, Gucci, for that?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing to say is that probably techniques against the moving ball are maybe not as competent now as they used to be. I mean, you have to be on your game against the new ball because, you know, you've got to get over that first period. You can't afford, obviously, you don't have any honeymoon period when you're out there. You know, you've got to be straight on it. You've got to be prepared at the beginning. I think it's also a mindset. I get a lot of people say to me, "Oh, opening's difficult, isn't it? You know, better to battle in the middle order." I mean, obviously, Joe Root started. He's got 190, didn't he, for England at Lords in 2013 opening, and we all thought as coaches back in when he started that, you know, Cook and Root, that's going to be our opening partnership for you know, maybe another decade, or you know. And then he obviously graduated to the middle order after doing a bit of it in the one-day games. And I think it's a bit of mindset as well with opening. You've got to relish the fact you're going in first. I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think the way to think about it is I've got the whole game in front of me, okay? The whole game, I'm there to influence that game. And that could be a challenge to my technique at the beginning. But if I get over that period, I can make the contribution that makes the difference. And I always tell the players, you know, when I was coaching, you know, don't think about how many runs you score. What's important is when your contribution helps your team win the game. So if I try and pump an Essex player's tyres up a little bit, Dan Lawrence's 21, was it the other day in that second innings? His contribution got England over the line there, all right? Bairstow as well, but his. So it's not because he got 150, but his 21, you know, if we'd have lost another wicket there, 14 for 4 or whatever it was, and, you know, that would have been squeaky bum time, wouldn't it? Let's be fair, you know, even with 70 to chase. So I think you've got to want that challenge. I do think a little bit in county cricket, I watch a lot at Chelmsford. Obviously, I don't go to a lot of away games now, but I watch every home game. Chelmsford's not the worst wicket to bowl on, but not quite like when I played there. It was quite flat. It's a little bit in it for the seamers. Your technique has got to be precise, isn't it, against the moving ball? And that's one slight criticism I have of the modern player. They like to play on a flat wicket, but you've got to hone your skills when the ball's doing something. It's on the wickets that do something is where the batsmen win the game. Bowlers win games on flat wickets, not on green tops where the ball goes all over the place. That's where batsmen win the game, because you've got to be able to leave the ball well. You've got to be able to send a message to the bowler that I know where my off stump is. You have a whole load of tools in your bag, but you're not going to bring every tool out of that bag to play every shot in the book on every occasion. You have to be selective about what shots you're going to play today, depending on the conditions. They're all the skills, the beauty of the game. I think a lot of players play the same way a little bit. They take on balls on the up. You know, Joe Denley's looks a good player to me, but gets out the same way every time. You know, taking a fullish ball on outside of off, you know, and he nicks it. So you've got to be a bit smarter. You've got to be a bit more, you know, considerate in the way you play, and you've got to learn, you know, what you're good at, what you're not good at. Great example for me would be someone like Steve Waugh. When he started, when I first played against him, he was a bit of a dasher, actually. Played a lot of shots, you know, in the middle order. And then he fashioned his game to make it work for him, you know. Covered up when the ball was straight, never took on the short ball, but when they bowled wide of off stump, he used to lash it through the offside, whether square or cover drive. And, you know, look at the career he had. So And that's one of Alistair Cook's great, if not his greatest asset. I know he's on next match, isn't he, Simon, on TMS?
He is, yeah. He's on tomorrow morning at 4:30.
Greatest asset, right, is that from the first time I saw him, this boy knew exactly how he could score runs. He knew exactly what he could do and what he couldn't do, which a lot of players don't learn to a lot later in their career. Some never learn it. He knew what shots he could play. He knew what was dangerous for him, and he played accordingly. Hence, his first match for England in Nagpur, lots of cuts, lots of little clips off his hip, okay? He played in a style, and he knew what his game was. And he stuck to that. He enhanced that game as his career went on. He introduced more shots into his game, and he had, the greatest career of any England batsman in terms of number of runs. So it's about the mental side, and you've got to have different attributes, but you've got to be able to deal with the moving ball, and I think they're the skills that sometimes players don't learn.
Pushka, you've got that's a great question, by the way. You've got a collection of wisdoms behind you there, I see. Where are you based?
I'm India. Bangalore.
Whereabouts?
Bangalore, India.
Bangalore. So it's the middle of the night for you. You're doing well, staying up.
It's midnight.
And you must have celebrated, tremendously the other night.
Yeah, that was.
Pushka, who's your favourite Indian player? Pushka, who's your favourite Indian player?
No,
past or present.
I prefer club only.
No, who's your favourite?
Who's your favourite player?
Tendulkar.
Oh, still, is he?
Why is that?
Right.
Why Tendulkar?
I like his particular the shots, straight drive. One of my favorite shots, and the calmness.
Yeah, straight drive. Can't beat the
Nice.
straight drive. Shall I tell you what's the great thing about a straight drive, Pushka? Shall I?
Yeah.
The best feeling for a batsman is when they hit the ball down the wicket. Okay, so you hit it back where it comes from. So the bowler bowls a half decent ball. Simon here is not going to like this. Okay, they know it's a half decent ball because it's on target, maybe slightly over pitch. They hit it straight back down the ground. Nothing better to see the ball going past the bowler. And what is the real icing on the cake for that shot? Okay, is if the bowler, he puts his hand out, he tries to stop it and gets a hand on it. Okay, but it still goes for 4. Okay, that is the greatest feeling in the world as a batsman. Okay, the straight drive. Can I tell Pushka another thing about Tendulkar?
You are the original sadist, I think.
Sachin Tendulkar told me once when he was doing a coaching camp for some of our Essex and Middlesex players back in the early 2000s at his club, the MIG in Mumbai. And some of the players like Ravi Bapar asked him a question. And I asked him a question saying, I can't remember, Simon Mann might remember, he scored a double 100 against Australia at Sydney, I think it was, or somewhere.
Yeah, it was Sydney,
early 2000s sometime.
Yeah, it was.
And I said to him, I watched some of your innings, Sachin, and I said, just tell me, I said, you didn't seem to play any balls on the offside. You just let them go all the time. You didn't play any drives or anything like that on the offside. And I said, well, why was that? It's not normally your style of play. You're normally a 360 player all around the wicket. He said, no, I wasn't feeling on top form with my offside play. So I said to myself, I'm going to leave the ball well here, right? I'm not going to drive. I'm going to leave the ball well. And the moral of the story is never tell yourself a negative. So he didn't say, I'm not going to cover drive. I'm not going to off drive. He said to himself, I'm going to leave the ball well. And that's a great lesson in sport. Never accentuate a negative. If you can't do that, do something else well. Brilliant line.
Yeah, we actually, that is a brilliant line. And we had that with Alistair Cook, didn't we, as well? Pushka, thanks very much for your question and thanks for your membership and everything. Great. So let's go to Howell now, who we tried to get on last week.
It's Nortzy. I'm going to stage a quick intervention.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he's here.
Oh, right.
Move to
I
Alex.
think it's a lady, actually.
Oh, is it?
Okay. Right, we'll move on. In fact, just a quickie. We'll move on. So Alex, I think it's Alex Gaywood, probably. Is it? You got a question?
Yep. Hi guys.
Hi,
Evening,
hi, Alex.
Graham, Simon, and thanks again for another fascinating evening. One of the things that I've always found quite remarkable about your career, Graham, is that the first time you got to #1 in the ICC batting rankings was actually when you were 38 years old. You stayed there for a few years. But that's normally the point where players have been quietly dropped from the international scene. So I was wondering why you thought you peaked relatively quite late in your career, and whether you thought that international sides often get rid of players maybe a bit too early. I mean, they hit a bit of rough patch in the early 30s, and that seems to be the end for them.
Well, I had a rough patch in my early to mid 30s, and obviously I didn't have anyone else to pick. So I was quite lucky actually, because in 1987, I didn't go to Australia in 86 because my twins were bald, and took a lot of stick in the newspapers for that. My twins were bald. Obviously, Australia were well defeated by Michael Gattin's side in the Ashes. So Broad and Athey, if I remember rightly, were opening. In 87, I didn't start too well. And I remember I was telling John Embry the other day, I got 6 noughts on the trot in county cricket, in one-day games and county cricket at the start of 87. So I didn't get into the side I played a few one-day internationals, but I didn't get into the side in the test matches against Pakistan. But fortunately, I was penciled in to play in the MCC versus the rest of the world match at the end of the season. What was the official title of that, Simon? Do you remember?
I think it was the bicentennial game.
Yeah, bicentenary. Anyway, so I somehow made that side, not because they'd already decided at the beginning of the season who was going to play on either side. I managed to get 100 in that game. And then I got on the tour to Pakistan and the World Cup, and then things picked up after that. But I think the big change for me was when I was main sort of captain of England, and that gave me an extra gear, as I've already said. It gave me an extra responsibility. And I also sort of learnt late in my career, in my mid-30s, how to control my emotions, how to believe in myself a bit better. I mean, there was no sports psychologist around then or anything like that. You had to learn yourself off of other people, which I don't know what it was like when Simon Hughes, yours has started, but, when I started county cricket, there was no coaches, as I've already said. Okay, so you had to ask the senior players, and you learned off the senior players. And if you were smart, you picked up tips, and, you learned yourself. And that's what I said about, one of the greatest things to teach a player as a coach is think for yourself. So I worked out when I became captain of England, how to control myself and become a better player, a more consistent player. I mean, I had not done really badly beforehand, but I felt that there was a lot more there. And all the years of fitness work that I'd done previously and took a bit of flack for it, all started to pay dividends, because even in my mid-30s, I was still, I felt good. I felt alert and alive. And of course, as a batsman, if I said to you it's rather akin to downhill skiing or Formula One racing, what do you think I'm referring to there as a batsman?
I don't know how to compare it to
Okay. If I said mistake, would that help you?
Or one mistake and you're dead, kind of thing.
One mistake and it's the end of your day. Okay. So when people talk about fitness, which is second nature in all sports now, but particularly cricket, as a batsman, if you're fitter, stronger, more alert, sharper, your mind is more alert, you concentrate better, you don't drift, you don't make mistakes. And so therefore your concentration is stronger. So all those years of the run-in and fitness work started to pay off towards the end of, the back end of my career.
Did you read anything did you read anything about that kind of gave you more guidance on that front? Not
really. I was always a little bit doubtful as to having success. But towards the end, when I became captain of Essex and then captain of England, I can't describe it, Simon, how I convinced myself I was going to be successful. I told myself and kidded myself that I am going to get runs against Malcolm Marshall. I didn't go out there thinking, well, Mako's knocked me over the last 4 times out of 5. If you think like that, you're waiting for the 5th time, aren't you? I convinced myself I'm good enough to get runs against anybody, and it's that state of mind, and that made a huge difference to me. And I really taught myself. I didn't have anyone who helped me with that. Kenny Barrington helped me many years before, and Mickey Stewart helped me to a degree, and Alan Lilly, my friend at Essex, helped me. But that mental side, I became a much stronger character in the mind when I was batting, and when I got in, I made it count.
You didn't have that that same swagger that you talked about, say someone like Viv Richards had. When I was looking back at that 154 innings actually, and you know, sometimes you sort of still ducked your head as if, but rather than puff your chest up. But you did have quite an intimidating presence somehow. Were you aware of that?
I tried to. I liked a little bit. If there was a bit of needle in the game, or between a bit of sledging, I liked that. And in fact, the Australia, I mean, Shane Warne used to call me Mr. Gooch, didn't he? There was no sledging going on at that stage at the end. It was the opposite. And I think that's how Australia treated Kevin Peterson a little bit. They were really nice to him and engaged with him, you know, when he was on the field. And I didn't get any sledging because I found towards the back end of my career and middle of my career that if someone sledged me, that made me more determined. And it's a difficult balance because a lot of players, if they get sledged, they want to compete against the man, okay? And of course, sledging's about getting you to play the man and not the ball. That's what it's all about. To take you right in football and rugby, trying to get you to get back at the man or the woman, if it's, you know, obviously it's female cricket, whatever, get back at the person. Whereas you've got to turn that to your advantage and say, well, if they're sledging me, I must be doing something right, okay? And it would make me more determined to be there at the end. And I can only describe that as again, sharpening your senses, okay? That sharpened my senses and made everything in my game, the mental side, the movement, the shot selection, the ability to build an innings, it made it all sharper for me. So I was really happy if someone sledging me because I you know, that was an advantage for me.
Scott, are you here tonight? Are you still of this world? You've had a few issues with health and things, I know, but you're probably fine now, are you? Yeah, he's there. Scott grew up with Warney in the Australian Academy, actually, Gucci, and is a leg spin coach.
Okay.
So Scott, far away.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, yeah.
Hello, Scott. I can't hear you.
Hello, is that better?
That's good. Good, man.
Yeah, Graham, we met many, many years ago. You won't remember me though. But yeah, nice to see you again. And thanks for the great insight tonight. It's been brilliant.
As Warney, you've seen him, he's still on the cheese sandwiches and the pizzas and that?
He hasn't changed. I saw him at his book signing a few years ago. We caught up then, but he's
one of the great stories. I went to his foundation dinner in London once at the Cafe Royal, okay? 600 people, and I was asked to make a little tribute to him along with Michael Parkinson, and all the food was coming out, and suddenly 6 blokes turned up. This is absolutely true, from Domino's Pizza. Okay, and they waded in amongst all the people with black tie in there, and they dumped on his table 6 massive Domino's pizza.
He hasn't changed his diet. Back when I knew him, was a cheese pizza and a durry, a cigarette. That's what he used to have. Remember the AOS.
So it didn't do him any harm, that's for sure.
No, it certainly didn't. God. So, go on, Scott, what's your question?
I think I just asked my second one. I think he's already answered my first
go on then.
Graham, if you're teaching a youngster these days, what emphasis do you put on teaching the correct technique? Because a lot of batting coaches in particular say, get out there and hit the ball and have some fun. When do you actually bring the technique side into it? And how important do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a few basics with batting, okay? I mean, setup is a little bit unique, you know, can be for each player. I mean, there's obviously a standard way of standing and everything, but I think that the few basics are that your head has got to be upright, okay? Your eyes have got to be level, and preferably your eyes have to be over off stump, okay? Because when you talk to someone about bowling straight, generally they're talking about bowling off stump, all right? So if your eye line's on off stump, you know when, it's quite simple, when your ball is coming at your eye line, you know it's on target, basically. You know if it's outside your eye line, it's missing off stump, you can leave it, or if you don't want to attack it. And obviously if it's the other side, it's probably going down leg side. And of course, the other thing is you've got to be able to move your feet backwards and forwards. Have you heard of Ted Dexter, Scott?
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, okay, he's a pretty good player. And he was chairman of selectors when I was playing. He said making me captain of England was like being slapped in the face with a wet fish, right? So we didn't start off well, but we got on better later. Great man, Ted. He said to me once, batting, he said, moving your feet, he said, you got to bat in a bath. Have you ever heard that saying?
No.
You have to bat in a bath. I won't say what else he said. You can bat in a something pot. That's it. You said it, Simon, yeah. So what he meant was...
Sorry, go on.
What he meant was if you stood in a bath, Scott, how can you move your feet? Just tell me, how do you move your feet?
Well, you can only go forward or back, can't you?
Correct. Exactly. You can only go forward or back. And that's what you really want to do. Now, there is some exceptions. Your Steve Smiths, Alex Stewart used to jump across the crease a lot. You know, Chandra Pal, there's obviously exceptions to that. But generally, you've got to move your feet backwards and forwards. And there's different styles. There's a forward press and there's a back and across and all that. But generally, you move backwards and forwards.
Yeah,
so you have to.
You would teach that to a youngster. You wouldn't just say, get out there and hit the ball, son, type thing. You'd actually teach them the technique.
Well, yeah, I mean, you use a good word, teaching. There's a difference between teaching and telling, isn't there?
Yeah.
If you tell someone something, they do it once. If you teach them, they do it forever.
Thanks. Brilliant.
All right, great. Thanks, Scott. We better move on, actually. But that was another great question. Yeah, well, Scott's in England now anyway, so yeah, I don't think he sees him too much. But right, Annie, I'm afraid I know you posted a question, but I couldn't find it. So I don't know what you want to ask, but I'm sure you've got one.
Is that a cricket picture I can see behind you, Annie? Maybe.
Yes.
What is that ground behind you, Annie?
Have a guess. Have a guess. There's only one ground it could be.
Somerset by the wonderful Jack Russell.
Ah, Somerset.
Yeah.
Jack Russell was painted as a Somerset ground.
Yeah.
Well, he lives near there, doesn't he? Allegedly.
Stroud.
He's gone to North Yorkshire now. He lives up north.
Has he?
Yeah, he's moved up north. Yeah.
Hey,
trying to escape from people.
Jack Russell is wonderful. Won't have a word said against him. Can I just say it's wonderful to hear you talking so passionately, Graham. It's brilliant, and also I grew up watching you, so it's really wonderful for me to speak to you. So
you don't look that old, Annie.
My question is, when do you think was the golden age of England cricket? Or do you think it's still to come? I've got a few little bits to this question. And do you think central contracts made a huge difference, and the money from Sky?
Wow. Okay, golden age of English cricket. Some would say it would be in the 50s, wouldn't it? With the May, Cowdrey, Barrington, all those sort of era. I don't know. I mean, certainly
Compton,
my age was not the golden age, that's for sure. I think recently when Michael Vaughan was captain of England and since we've had some very good times beating Australia. Obviously, when I was coaching there, we beat them quite a few times. It depends how you judge it. I think England in recent times has been generally on an upward curve. Okay. You judge yourself generally against the Ashes. Obviously, in our era, we were up against the West Indies with a top team by a long way. I don't know. It's difficult to say what's the golden era.
We were number one. We were number one in the world in 2011.
Yeah. We beat Australia. We beat India at home 4-0, and then when Alistair Cook was captain, we beat them in India, which is a good performance. Having lost the first test as well at Ahmedabad.
That was a pretty good era with KP and that team, Strauss,
very good size.
Trescothick, Anderson was sort of you know, was a force, wasn't he? Obviously.
Yeah, we had
bad at the moment, is it?
Anderson.
No, you mean the
Actually,
team.
I'm
You mean the
surprised
team.
that question. I'm surprised the question hasn't come up about Anderson and Broad, because I have a bit of a theory about that. But I'll answer your questions first. So, not sure about the true golden era. Let's hope it's to come. Obviously, winning the World Cup was a major triumph in 2019, and people like Stokes, hopefully he's still got, you know, many more years of brilliant cricket, and hopefully he'll get really better. Go on, you got to repeat. What was your other two questions? Go on.
Whether central contracts and the money from Sky you think made it.
Central contracts, I think, has helped the players, yeah, for the last 20 years. It's helped England control the players, and generally, I think it's been a good thing. I didn't quite like the way Duncan Fletcher handled central contracts when he stopped lots of players playing for counties. And I think personally, he had a blanket rule that no one could play, you know, so it made it easy. And I think you have to allow players to play county cricket, and you have to, each individual player's case is separate. So some might benefit from playing county cricket in between, or, you know, when it's right for them. Some might benefit from a rest. I don't think you can have a blanket rule for every player that they don't play. So you got to know your player and work out what's good for him. Some bowlers need to bowl all the time because they keep their rhythm up. Some can rest, like Darren Goff, you know, could have a few weeks off and then come back and be all guns firing. Sky, difficult with Simon Mann on the programme. This probably, I don't know. That look, their money has kept things going, and I think they've done a great job since they covered my tour to the West Indies in 1990, which was their first broadcast, really. I think they've done a brilliant job. I mean, everyone would like to see the cricket on free-to-air television or terrestrial television. I think the problem is that up until now, when BT and probably we're going to be looking at Amazon and Google and Apple and all these people.
Isn't it?
Yeah, we're same with the football. They've all got much deeper pockets than Sky. That's for sure. They've been the only game in town. I think they've done a good job at their only game in town. I mean, Simon might want to come in. BBC could never have full-time cricket, I don't think, on TV because they couldn't schedule it and they couldn't afford it. I'd like Simon to comment on that. I don't really know, but that's my assumption.
No, I don't think the BBC could show what would be committed to showing Test cricket, and they've said that. They've gone for the 100, haven't they? They've gone for the live coverage they had last summer was T20, and that's where they're focused. Yeah, and that's where they see potentially building a new audience in Test cricket. They've left that alone, and they'll let others, like you say. I mean, Amazon, all these
have they left that alone? Have they left that alone because they can't schedule it or can't afford it, or it doesn't fit? It doesn't.
I think
it's both.
I think both. I think there was an element of. I think they were pretty peeved in 1999 when the ECB walked away from them. I think there was deep hurt within the BBC. This is my summation, and I think they thought, well, fine, okay, you go off and do what you want to do. And perhaps the new people in charge now, but there isn't the money there to the contracts are huge now relatively, and BBC just doesn't have that money to plow into it.
They aren't doing much sport. Let's face it, really.
No, well, they can't afford it.
No, they can't afford it. They can't afford it. Yeah.
No, and it's been priced out of the market.
Can I just ask a supplementary while we're on this subject? Do you see Amazon's coming into cricket?
Yes,
Amazon,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking to them now about a documentary. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. And their strategy is to buy events rather than long contracts. They like the Ashes or something, yes. And they particularly like it when it's around festive periods like Christmas, where people are thinking about buying other stuff. So what their strategy is get the email addresses, get the contact details of lots of people, so you can push more products at them.
It's the future of sport. It's the future of TV. It's going to be everywhere.
Yeah. It'll be streaming though.
The streaming will be. They're going to bid. They're probably going to bid for the Ashes.
They will. They will.
And they can outbid anyone financially.
Well,
it's just whether the host broadcaster is prepared to take a one-off deal.
And I think your point about Sky is interesting because although everyone thinks it's the money, and obviously that is a very influential factor, they have spent a lot of put a lot into cricket.
They have.
Well, I'm anti-monopoly totally, and I was very critical of Sky getting that deal, which was a monopoly of, you know, no one else could get it kind of thing. But they have put a lot of behind the scenes into their commitment to cricket, which Amazon probably wouldn't. You know, they'll just be doing it for themselves. So it's going to be quite a difficult decision, that, but money does unfortunately talk. Listen, we should move on. I mean,
what they did was take it away from.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they damaged the game irreparably for a long time, but they did do a lot of other good things. So yeah.
Also, as well, it's worth just saying their coverage is excellent as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
The coverage of the game is excellent.
Yeah, it is. Annie, thanks very much for that. Listen, we've got to do the quiz now, haven't we, Simon?
We have. I've got to go.
I've got to do the quiz.
I've got to go
to bed. Apart from everything else,
Okay.
but I know. But let's right.
What time start is it? Oh, we got the same. Oh, we got Anderson's playing, isn't he?
Yeah, 4:30 start in the morning.
Same
right.
Pitch,
so
same pitch. Are they playing on the same pitch?
No, they're not playing. They're not playing on the same pitch, but they might be playing on a pitch that goes a bit quicker. You know, deteriorates a bit quicker because it's been out in the open.
Hard
isn't
to
it,
imagine. Hard to imagine it's going to turn even more. Anyway, right. Let's get on with this
go
quiz.
earlier, I think. Go earlier.
So, Gucci, this is how well do you know yourself, right? And we start with a bit of music. Okay, so that's the little introduction.
Right, I thought
now,
that was a
basically,
question for a minute. I was a bit worried.
yeah, who composed that? There's 10 questions. West Ham fan. There's 10 questions. If you get it right, you get a. He's got it. And if you get it wrong, you get a. Okay. And leader in the clubhouse is Andrew Strouth with 9 this year. He was very good, actually.
He's a bit more cerebral than me.
Yeah.
Come on in.
And 7 is Ian Bell got 7. So Simon, fire away.
Okay. Right. Question number 1 then, Graham. How many did you make on your first class debut? You were LBW to Bob Cottam. How many did
16. 16. No.
18.
Against Northants. Was it 18? Northants at Westcliff.
Yeah, you got the main facts right, except for the crucial one. So that's 0 out of 1. Right. Who eventually dismissed you when you made your 333 against India at Lords?
Prabhakar.
Thought that's a half volley on off stump.
That was easy.
1 out of 2.
Question number 3, 1 out of 2 then. Who were your first and last opening partners for England?
First one was Mike Brearley.
Half a point.
Last one, when was my last test? Oh, it's a difficult one because I was Perth 1995. God, who was the other opener?
Who was at the other end in Perth in 1995?
God, hang on. Not sure. Was it Atherton? No, I don't know.
We'll give you that. Very good. 2 out of 3. Very good. Well remembered. If you hit more 6s in Test cricket than ODIs, or the other way around, or more ODI 6s than Tests, so in which format did you hit more 6s?
Similar amount of games. God, don't know. I would say in Test cricket.
He's got it. You've got it. 25 against 15. 25 6s in Tests, 15 in ODIs. 3 out of 4.
Yeah, that's quite surprising.
Great saying, isn't it? When you're batting, it's either on the ground or out the ground.
Question number 5.
Yeah.
On which ground did you make your first one-day international half century? So which ground did you get to 50 for the first time in one-day international cricket? It was in 1978. And the opponents were Antipodean.
New Zealand. I think there was a game at Scarborough, actually, in that series. I don't think so. It wouldn't be Headingley. I'm guessing Trent Bridge. No.
Well, go on. Are you sure?
I don't know. I mean, I played 3 one-day internationals, I think, in 78. One was at Scarborough. I know that. One, I don't know. I don't know. It's just a guess. Trentbridge.
Okay. Well, you had it there, but you got it wrong in the end.
Was it Scarborough?
It was Scarborough, yeah.
Oh,
Scarborough was the right answer, yeah.
Was it?
You talked yourself out of the right
Oh,
answer.
I should have
Right,
said
3 out of
Scarborough.
5. 3 out of 5. Question 6. Everyone remembers their first Test match wicket. In your case, it was Sunil Gavaskar. Who was your second victim? Hard that, actually.
That's tough, that. Right, so Sunil Gavaskar, 1979.
It's in 1980, your second Test wicket.
Oh, was it? So that's West Indies then?
Not necessarily.
Oh, was it in India? Could have been in India, I suppose.
He hasn't got a clue, has he?
Dawn Bombay.
No.
1980. Where was we? In the West Indies.
No. You were completely different continent. You were down under.
1980.
Was it?
Oh, 79, 80. Oh, hey,
Yes.
hang on. Ian Chappell.
Oh, just got there. Just the DRS was just about to be
Got
counted
Ian
out then.
Chappell and Rod Marsh.
Yeah,
in that
that's
match.
right. Yeah, at the
So
SCG in
that's
1980.
That's 4 out of
6.
7, isn't it? 4 out
4
of
out of
7.
6. 4 out of 6.
Yeah, 4 out of 6. Okay, right. Question 7, Simon.
Who dismissed you most in tests?
The West Indies, we played a lot. Australia has to be. Marshall.
He's got it!
Very good. Very
16
good
times. 16 times, Malcolm Marshall.
He got plenty, don't worry.
He did. Okay, question 8. If you add together your first class and 1-day runs, what is the total, roughly? What is your total number of runs that you made in all cricket?
I would say, what's that?
Are we going to give him within a sort of...
Within 100 or something like that.
Well,
Yeah.
I thought
I mean, if
within
he
a-
gets a roughly, then well, let's just see what he says. Let's see what he says. Let's see what he says. I've told him this answer before anyway.
13,000?
No, not test runs. First
Oh,
class.
first
class
class.
and
Sorry,
list
what's
A and everything. All cricket.
runs.
All runs.
runs.
County, test, everything.
67,000.
Ooh, I'll give you that. It's very good. 67,057, actually.
Not bad.
You forgot the 57. That's an amazing performance.
Yeah,
6 out of 8.
Incredible. Right, question number 9. Last 2 questions. Who caused you whiplash before a Sunday league game?
Nasser Hussain.
Tell us the story.
We were playing in Northampton. We had to play the Sunday league game, as we did many times, Simon Hughes, a different ground. So we had to travel from Northampton to Trent Bridge. And someone had told us there was a trouble on the motorway. So we had to go the scenic route versus via, shall I say, Market Harborough. Okay, so I was in my Toyota Celica with our chief executive or secretary, Peter Edwards. Nadeem Shahid and Nasser Hussain were following me in their Ford Sierra, okay? So we were going down this A road, went over the brow of a hill, 50, 60 mile an hour, and literally 100 yards over the brow of a hill, but people, guys doing the roadworks with a stop-go sign, right? So we had to come to a sharp stop, okay? So I'm sitting there, there's one car in front of us, just literally for 10, 20 seconds, sit there, and then Nasser just smashes straight into the back of us, hits us, it knocks us into the car in front, okay? He came over the top of the hill trying to keep up with us, didn't see us, and went straight into the back. And the Ford Sierra just went all in pieces. And I still had to drive my Toyota to the blooming ground. So we were a bit shook up. Nadeem Shahid was shook up, but we managed still to play, that's for sure. So Nasser.
You had whiplash, though.
Well, I'm not sure. I still played Whiplash or not.
7 out of 9. Very good. You've
In
got
our
it.
era, Simon, we just played, didn't we? There was no having the game off. We just didn't do it.
Yeah. What about the mental health? Come on. Anyway, right. Right. Last question. This is a bit cryptic. Have a little think about it.
Right.
How do you say the number 8 in French?
Wheat.
He's got it!
Correct.
And I only know that because I went on Mike Atherton's benefit tour to Reims, where Champagne is, okay? And all the lads were there. We didn't play the French cricket. We played them at Patang, okay? And we beat them as well. We beat them, believe it or not. And in this pub, okay, in this pub with all the boys, you know the story, don't you? Sitting down, and I'm counting up how many drinks they want. I'm sort of one eye on the barman and one eye on them. And I quite like Erdinger, okay, which is wheat beer, okay? So, so I said to the guy, I'm looking and trying to count. I said to the guy, wheat beer. So I could see it there, Erdinger in that thing. So I turned around counting the guy. The next thing I know, he's got 8 beers on the table. Anyway, that's the story.
Good story. Very good story. And you've got 8 out of 10. I thought you said you were rubbish at stats and knowing your own game.
I don't know.
Well, that's very good.
I used to know if they didn't put the score up right on my score. I used to know that.
Ah, you're a counter, were you? Will you count all your runs, did you?
No, I didn't count my runs, Simon, but I knew if the score didn't go up correctly after each, addition, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I was never one to go in numbers and everything. I only had one milestone. Well, the first milestone for me was 20. If I got to 20, I sort of, I don't know, it sort of was a sort of mini milestone, and then just get as many as you can. And that's why I used to tell Alistair, I'll tell him tomorrow, yes, say, you never got enough. Yeah. Mention that you never got enough.
Listen, Graham, it's been fantastic to have
just
you on.
one more question, actually.
Okay.
I know we should all wind up soon. There's been talk. I was at the MCC committee yesterday, actually, and there's talk of limiting the amount of short pitch bowling, or even eliminating balls above shoulder high for player safety. And I guess it's partly on the back of all these concussions and other sports having issues with players with head injuries and so on. I just wondered what you thought of that.
So the rationale is to limit injuries,
I guess.
Well, I think it would take a lot away from the game. I think it might affect people wanting to aspire to be fast bowlers. Okay, not because they want to hit people, but it's part of a fast bowler's armoury. I don't think you get a lot of wickets with short balls, but the thought of someone getting a short ball creates wickets in different areas for the bowler. And I think it would be a shame. I think the players are quite well protected there. And I think it's been part of the game in history. And I think we could do the game a disservice, to be honest. And who would want? I mean, I think it's tough enough being a bowler nowadays. In T20 cricket, which is obviously becoming the most popular form, sadly, in my opinion, in a way, over the longer form and Test cricket, we're already playing to 65-yard boundaries and things like that, and the ball's flying everywhere. Will people want to bowl? Will they really want to bowl? So, we talk about, you've got to have that menace and you've got to have that penetration. You've got to have that sort of threat. It's not all about just bowling short. It's bowling variety. And I think it would create a lot of mediocre batsmen as well.
Interesting quote here, actually. I'll just finish with. This is from Cheteshwar Pujara, who talks about his innings the other night in events in where were they, for God's sake?
Brisbane.
Brisbane.
I mostly got hit from one end, and that was against Pat Cummins. There was this crack on the pitch around the short of a length spot from where the ball would just take off. Cummins has the skill to make the ball rear up from there and make it follow you. In case I took my hand up to defend it, there was a risk that I would glove the ball. Considering the match situation and how we couldn't afford to lose wickets, I decided to let the ball hit my body.
Brian Close.
Mate, Brian Close, reincarnated.
I mean, I think that's a bit of a skill, actually, because it's not the natural thing to let it hit you, you know, to do that, you know, sort of instantaneously as the ball comes and then not react in the normal way you would do. I think that's amazing skill, that is, you know, just take your hands off the bat, you know. I once saw Yunus Ahmed. Do you remember Yunus Ahmed?
Mm.
He faced the ball, okay, and the ball reared up off short of a length. He took his hand off the bat and caught the ball. Have you ever seen that before? I think he was given out. He must have been given out. He took his top hand off the bat and caught the ball. How'd you do that? Amazing.
Well, listen,
I'm not in favour of that rule change.
Okay. No, okay, good. Well, fine. We miss you on the circuit, you know, at the tests and things. Sorry that you're not there anymore. What are you doing now, actually?
Well, I'm ambassador for Essex, so I'm at all their matches. I'm on the sort of we've got a cricket committee back, but that went for a while, but it's back. So I help in the background. I don't do any coaching anymore. So do that, do a few functions. President of the PCA, as you know, do ambassador for them. So I go to quite a few of the tests, especially in London, still on the periphery of the game. Yeah, I'm quite happy, yeah.
Well,
like
great.
To see good cricket, like to see our youngsters coming through, you know, both Essex and England, and really pleased with the performance the other day. I'm really pleased with getting some younger players in.
You've got high hopes for Dan Lawrence?
Yeah, I think Dan has done himself a lot of good in this test, not because he's contributed nearly 100 runs in difficult conditions, but he showed he's got character and he shows he's got the mental aptitude for the job, and he adjusted quite well. I think from an early age, he always showed good temperament. He was a bit of a fighter. He's obviously got his own way of playing, okay? He reminds me a little bit of Kevin Peterson, okay? The way he plays. You know, likes to get on the front foot, likes to whip it through mid-wicket a little bit. But I thought he showed good skill the other day, and hopefully he's going to give the selectors, you know, a little bit of a headache as things go on, because you've got Pope, Ollie Pope's a really good talent. You've got Crawley, you've got Sibley. So they've got some choices there, which is good.
Burns as well, yeah.
And you got Stokes, who I think is an excellent batsman. He'll come back into the side, obviously. But I don't think he takes one of the batting places. I think he takes sort of Curran's place, if you ask me, in that sort of side the other day. I did want to say at the beginning, I'm surprised no question came up about Anderson and Broad, because all the conjecture about Anderson and Broad going to Australia, I think they've dispelled that, because I think they're both going to go now. Whether they play or not all the time, that's another question. But I think all the chat at the beginning of the last summer about are they over the hill, should we be going in a different route compiling our side for Australia and the type of attack we want, I think that's helped them a lot. I think initially maybe the pressure was on in the first few matches to perform, especially with Jimmy Anderson was probably trying too hard. But now I think that's given them a bit of a boost, you know, in a way that, you know, well, they keep writing us off. So that's giving me a bit of extra motivation, if you see what I mean.
And if your career is anything to go by, your best years are after 35. So
well, yeah, I mean, it's difficult to. I'll be honest. I can't see them shaping up at Brisbane if it takes place. That is, if they let us into Australia. I mean, you used to have a criminal record to get in, didn't you? But anyway, if we shape up in November in Brisbane, I can't see Broad and Anderson taking the new ball, if you ask me. I think we need the others, but I can certainly see one of them potentially playing, you know, in the side.
You know, actually, sorry, we don't want to prolong this, but I mean, in a way, funnily enough, it played to India's advantage having a squad who didn't play every test match, whereas Australia tried to get through the series with the same attack, and they looked really pretty jaded by the end. So a lesson there is, especially in Australia, you need a squad, you need to rotate a bit, really.
Yeah, I think England need to have Archer and Wood. My opinion, I think they're doing the right thing with Wood. You need to wrap him up in cotton wool a little bit and really control the number of matches and overs he bowls, because he's a real asset, you know, in the right conditions. And we know he's had past injury problems, and we've got to keep him available for selection when the right matches come round.
Listen, let's leave it there, because you've done an hour and 50 minutes. Amazing. As usual, you've played a long innings and you're still unbeaten. Fantastic effort. May I say, on behalf of all of us, thank you for everything you've done for the game and for being so entertaining tonight as well.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it, seeing you two guys and all your, well, not listeners, but all the guys on the other end of their laptops and everything. And just to say about long innings, Simon, I'm not sure you ever had this thought, but one of the greatest things about being a batsman is when you're not out overnight and you're having a shower and you've got the next day to look forward to. Did you ever experience that?
Yeah, I did. I was out first ball. I'll tell you about that another time. Graham Gooch, star of batsmanship. Thank you very much.